This winning in the playoff thing, a guy could really get used to. Rany, Jazayerli, Soren, Petro with you back again on another victorious Kaufman Corner playoff edition, our second ever playoff edition of the Kaufman Corner. Happy to bring it to you, the good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, Soren, Petro with you. I will talk about it. Royals win again and advance. They continue to own the Orioles. In fact, I think they started that playoff losing streak of the Orioles back in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
They've now at least continued it here against the Baltimore Orioles. Another sweep of Baltimore. Seth Lugo only goes 4 1/3, but only gives up a run. The bullpen goes 4 2/3 shutout innings, including Ursig slamming the door again. Offense still not clicking, but Bobby Witt coming through in the clutch to get it done. Can you win games like this, just scoring a couple of runs against the New York Yankees? How do you line up the starting staff against the Yankees? Listen, the American League Division Series is right around the corner. We're talking about it right now here on the Kaufman Corner Podcast.
This is the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. It is fun to watch them win, Rany. They have found their formula. They're leaning on the pitching. The pitching seems to be holding up strong. Any nerves on this one as it was unfolding?
Soren, we had a great season. The Royals have nothing to hold their heads in shame about. We didn't expect them to make it this far. So even though their Achilles heel showed up at the wrong time and they scored just 3 runs in a round, the Royals did their best, and it's just a shame that they couldn't score any runs because, I mean, who expects a pitching staff to be able to win when you can only score 3 runs in 2 games? Oh, wait a minute. The Royals can, because the Royals allowed 1 run to the Baltimore Orioles in 2 games in Baltimore. They did it. They did it exactly the way they did it all of September, certainly, and for most of the year. Timely hitting, just enough hitting, and great starting pitching, and a new wrinkle, and an absolute shutdown bullpen for the second day in a row. I could get used to this, man. This was fun. This was a lot of fun. Was I nervous? Yes and no. I mean, the one thing I knew for sure was no matter what happens, they're playing another game. This is not their last game of the season, whereas the Orioles did not have that luxury. And that, there was certainly that moment after they failed to tack on to their lead in, what was it, the 5th inning, and then Cedric Mullins comes out, hits a bomb, immediately ties the game, and then the Orioles load the bases with nobody out. The Seth Lugo gets a weak contact and then, muffs a ground ball to load the bases with nobody out, where I was definitely making sure to clear my schedule for tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the return of 3 words, Royals, Devil, Magic, I can't. If you're in the comment section, and you can think of anything in the 2014-2015 playoff run that the Royals had incredible defensive plays, they had clutch hitting, but when you talk about Royals Devil Magic, you talk about something so weird and eerie that it doesn't make sense. The Royals got out of a bases loaded, nobody out jam by hitting a batter with the bases loaded and getting a strikeout. I cannot think. I'm trying to think of anything. The only thing I can think of is Nori Aoki's game-saving catch in game 1 against the Angels where he closed his eyes and caught the ball at the wall with his eyes closed. I cannot think of anything more bizarre that if you were on the other side, like if you're an Orioles fan, how despondent are you right now? To lose this game, to have the bases loaded, nobody out, having already tied the game, not scoring, and then losing by 1 run, the 6th time in a row you've lost to the Royals in a playoff game. Get this, all 6 of those games, they were either 1-run games or they were tied in the 9th inning. The last 4 games, these 2 games and the last 2 games of the ALCS, the Royals won by 1 run. Mind you, one of the games was 1-0. The other 3 were 2-1. So the Royals have won the last 4 games. The Royals have beaten the Orioles in the playoffs. They scored a total of 7 runs. And then the game before that was tied in the 9th inning. The game before that went to extra innings. They won both of those games by 2 runs. So, I mean, you're living right when the fan base of the other team can barely live with themselves right now.
Yeah. By the way, Cam noting that the Royals are 2-0 in their postseason era of the existence of Kaufman Corner. Thank you, Cam.
It's all us, baby.
That's right. There's a demand for a soliloquy. These are a little bit quicker. I don't know that we've got time for a Rany.
I don't know if I have time to write one, but
yeah,
maybe it'll come to me naturally.
How about a Joe Sheehan appearance? He's being called out.
We definitely we have an extended invitation, and I believe he will accept at some point in the Royals Yankees Armageddon series to come now. Yes, Joe Sheehan may come on the show and talk. We may trash talk each other. Joe and I have been waiting 32 years of friendship for this exact moment, a Royals Yankees playoff series. So yes, I'm optimistic Joe will make an appearance at some point.
26 and a half minutes on your next soliloquy. That's the over-under that the fellas are putting up there. If you'd like to get your wagers in now, I'll see what I can do with FanDuel and see if I can get it put on there. Don't act so fired up, boys. Why? I can't tell. Is that sarcastic or is that saying we're not fired up enough? I'm not sure what it is. It is amazing. And I do agree with, we had the comment. Somebody said here, this one, playoffs coming back to the K. Now it feels official, right there. That is something that I think even if you're like, okay, once you get there, the Orioles weren't playing that good. And so I really want them to win. I'm not sure I'm going to be satisfied there. You're satisfied now, right? Like there's no way. Now you're going to get home playoff baseball in Kansas City. You're going up against the New York Yankees, the number 1 seed. Like this is real playoff baseball. There's no way that this season is anything but a success. Even the biggest detractor couldn't try to find a way to bring this one down.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't feel like the playoffs until Jason LaCanfora is bitching about the Royals. So,
did he? I guess.
He was. I believe he was bitching about Salvador Perez framings, getting strikes called from the umpires, and like no part of that sentence would have made any sense to me at the beginning of the year. Not Jason LaCanfora bitching about the Royals in the playoffs, and not Salvador Perez framing pitches excellently in a game. So yes, we fringe benefit of beating the Orioles again was Baltimore man is upset. So
yeah,
it's for real now.
I just like, has he not learned anything in 10 years of just getting his ass handed to him on Twitter? Is like, I don't understand. I get all these texts from people like, oh, somewhere someone's drinking a mug of Jason LaCanfora's tears, just like all this stuff. Like, dude, you do it to yourself. You've made yourself, like, you literally, like, I said it the other night and people got all nervous, but Kansas City has made Baltimore its sporting bitch. Okay. And Jason LaCanfora makes it the pleasure that it is for Kansas City fans.
I wouldn't take nearly as much pleasure. I mean, I went to college in Baltimore. I have nothing against Baltimore. I feel bad that we have to keep beating Baltimore, but having him out there just makes it a little bit sweeter every time we win.
I got a buddy who's a Baltimore cop, right? That's a tough job. He kicks down doors. He's SWAT, Baltimore SWAT. Okay. So like, and he is a diehard Orioles and Ravens fan. And I feel like I enjoy every victory my teams win, but every time I'm like, God, man, this guy's at 4:30 in the morning. He's going to kick a door in tomorrow. And he just got, punked again with his ball club. I'm like, come on.
I would not want to be committing petty crime in Baltimore. In the next couple of days.
Yeah. It is. All right, let's start with Seth Lugo. What'd you think of what we saw? What'd you think of how Matt Quatrero handled him? I thought he went a couple batters too long. I thought he should have never seen the top of the lineup again. I thought Lefty should have been up and ready to go. And the plan, regardless of what happened the first two batters, when it got around to Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday. That I wasn't sure at that time. I wanted him to come, to be in the game when Gunnar Henderson came to the plate a third time. Right, 18 batters and out. And when batter number, I guess 17, Cedric Mullins homered to tie the game, and batter number 18, their number 9 hitter Ramon Urias singled. I was like you. I was like, okay, I've seen enough. And no, he didn't pull him right then and there. But to his credit, that was the moment he got Angel Serpa warming up. And after he walked Gunnar Henderson, I was definitely like, okay, this is enough. Now, what Jordan Westburg came up at next, he had the platoon advantage. Westburg's a right-handed hitter, so I think he left him in there. I think he was planning to pull him for Santander no matter what. And he got a very weak contact, but it was so weak that it was like a squibber, and he misplayed it. So yes, I agree that he should have probably pulled him 2 batters earlier. But having said that, a lot of managers, especially first-time managers, they have their ace, one of their co-aces on the mound, who almost led the league in innings pitched, right? Like he threw like 208 innings. It is a hard mental frame to suddenly be like, 5th inning, nobody out. This guy got me 12 outs. I'm pulling him, right? Maybe in an elimination game for the Royals, right? If they had lost yesterday, sure. But to be up 1-0, I wasn't sure he was going to pull him at all. And from the moment he did pull him, Quatrero's handling of the bullpen was flawless. We can talk about the offensive side. There were some weird things going on there, but on the bullpen side, Serpa, we talked about this yesterday. I wanted nothing but lefties and Lucas Erceg. I said, no right-hander should see a left-handed hitter, no right-handed reliever, except for Lucas Erceg should see a left-handed hitter the rest of the series. John Schreiber saw one. He got the right, left, right at the bottom of the lineup, and it worked out. But he brought in Serpa. And again, getting a strikeout on hit by pitch is wild and wacky, but Serpa was nasty, and he got Adley Rutschman, who was a switch hitter. His hit lefties a little bit better than righties in his career. So I was nervous about that part of it too. But the important about was getting Cowser to make it out without driving in a run, getting the strikeout there. And then from there, it was flawless. I mean, he brought in Schreiber, again, replaced Serpa to get the bottom of the lineup, which was right-handed. Then he went straight to Sam Long once the lefties came up. That worked out. Then he went to Bubic in the 8th, Erceg in the 9th. And the story of this team for the postseason is the bullpen, is how the bullpen, after 5 months of diddling around and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, the bullpen came together beautifully in September. And I'm going to throw a number here at you that I don't think you were aware of. That is absolutely wild. From September 21st, so the last, I believe, 10 games of the regular season, and their 2 playoff games, their last 12 games. On September 21st, Carlos Hernandez came into the game at like the 6th inning, gave up 3 runs. From that moment until now, Royals relievers have thrown 39 2/3 innings. They've given up 15 hits and 1 earned run. And that earned run was a home run that Sam Long gave up on Saturday against the Braves in a meaningless game in the bottom of the ninth, a walk-off homer. And I would not at all be surprised if the Royals basically told him, go out there and whatever you do, make sure this game doesn't go to extra innings because we don't want to waste any more relievers in a meaningless game 3 games before the playoffs start. And that's the only earned run the Royals have surrendered from the bullpen in the last 39 2/3 innings. This bullpen turned into the 2014-2015 bullpen at the absolute perfect time. It's crazy.
Which means that the bullpen that they used against the Orioles have not given up a run. Right, because Carlos Hernandez was not
exactly the one earned run, Sam Long, and again, it was a walk-off homer in a meaningless game in the bottom of the ninth, where it's just like let's just get this game over with, but quite possibly they're just like just throw strikes, like whatever you do, let's not prolong this game. Yeah, it's absolutely wild. Like today, 4 2/3 innings, 1 hit. Chris Bubich gave up 2-out single in the 8th. That was the only hit the bullpen gave up. It's not HDH. It doesn't have fancy. It's not a fancy trio. It's a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
But it has. I mean, Urseg at this point, I think, has ascended almost to HDH status in terms of what he's done, and obviously, came in back-to-back days with a 1-run lead. Yesterday, he came in with 2 on and 2 out in the 8th. Today, he got a clean 9th, but against a very scary Orioles lineup, and didn't give up anything remotely approaching a rally. So absolutely phenomenal work from them. Lugo did his job, and Quatrero managed the bullpen, aside from waiting a little bit, maybe a little bit too long, and they got very lucky in the 5th inning. But aside from that, they managed the entire pitching staff perfectly.
Yeah, I think it was great. My only rub was I thought Seth Lugo should have been out of there a little bit quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what he was trying to do. And, he had a spot where he was going to make that move. But I just thought it should have come a little quicker because, I thought Lugo was good. But I mean, I think we're seeing now Cole Reagans is their ace, right?
Yep,
like he
absolutely
has the swing and miss stuff to go toe-to-toe with anybody. And Seth Lugo's had a great year and has pitched like an ace. But, you need a little more swing and miss stuff. And, I think he should have been ready with a quicker hook. It worked out fine. They got it done because Angel Zerpa, who has been, the bane of existence at one point, came in and was lights out. I really think
Mm-hmm.
what he would like to have done was maybe go to Lynch there, but when he had trouble, then it had to be Zerpa because he had to get strikeouts. Right. And so, you couldn't just be looking, for length at that point. And so he pushed a different button and it worked. I do think it's important to give guys time to really get ready. And so I don't think this should be plan A, but it worked. Right. And so give credit to him. But the overall depth of the bullpen is great. Bubich looked a lot stronger in this one. And I think also key, Urseg gets it done in 9 pitches.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he doesn't have to go deep and now gets 2 days off and then can pitch 1 day, get another day off, pitch a day, get another day off. So the Yankees are going to see Urseg in each of the first 2 games. Barring somebody just getting blown out, he's going to come out of that bullpen and he is going to pitch, and they're going to have to beat him late if they need runs.
Oh yeah, no, he's going to be a massive weapon in this upcoming series. We'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show, maybe. But like the schedule of the upcoming series, just to remind everybody, it's unlike any playoff series the Royals have ever had. There are days off against the Yankees. There is going to be a day off after Game 1, Game 2, Game 4, and Game 5. The only game where you don't have a day off after it is Game 3. So yes, you absolutely can maximize the usage of your pitching staff in general, but absolutely your best relievers. And we'll get to this, but I mean, I actually think I originally, before the playoffs started, I was kind of rooting for the Royals just from a competition standpoint to get to face the Guardians in the next round instead of the Yankees, because I think the Yankees are a better team on paper. But then, once the matchups were set and I was looking at this schedule, and that's when I realized, oh, wait a minute. You want to face, I think the Guardians in a best of 7, a traditional best of 7 series, like let's say the ALCS, where you play 2 games, have a day off, play 3 games in a row, a day off. Yeah, the Guardians, because their starting rotation isn't great, and you can, there's only so many times you can use your 3 or 4 best relievers. Yeah, you can use them a ton, but not necessarily every single day can you max them out. But I absolutely don't want to see the Guardians in a round where there's a day off after 4 of the 5 games, and they've got 4 relievers. I mean, who cares who your starters are? They could get 6 innings out of Clase, Cade Smith, Hunter Gaddis, Tim Herron, right there. I mean, those guys, none of those guys had an ERA above 2 this year. Whereas the Yankees, they've got some, they've got some decent relievers, but like, Clay Holmes led the league in blown saves and was lost, him coming out of the bullpen is going to just elicit boos from Yankee Stadium. Like, they don't want that guy out there. He hasn't been terrible, but he's beatable. Their best reliever, this pains me to say, is Luke Weaver, who the Royals acquired a couple years ago in the, I believe, in the Cal Eldred era. So that might be explain why that didn't work out. But they saw something in him, and 2 teams later, he's justified at least what they saw in him, even if they couldn't get it out of him. But the point is, that team, I'm not as concerned about the Yankees. I don't think they have anybody in their bullpen as good as Lucas Ursig, right? Like that's, I think, the take home point is that Ursig right now has established himself as a huge weapon. And I think we're going to see a ton of him in the next series.
Couple things here real quick. One, whoever had the fact that Rany would be able to work in Cal Eldred on the night of a playoff clinching win, you win and everybody else has to take a drink. Okay, that's number one, because he managed to get Cal Eldred in here. And people have talked about the fact that the Royals are undefeated in the Kaufman Corner era. That's right. They're undefeated also in the era of Gann Asphalt and Concrete sponsoring the Kaufman Corner. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Rany, the offense is still an issue, though, right? Like, today was a day where I thought it was going to be more of like a 5-3 game. I didn't think Seth Lugo was going to go. I didn't think he'd go as well as he did. I thought the Royals were going to have to put some runs on the board. So credit Seth Lugo, credit the bullpen for doing what they did to get out of there with a 2-1 win. But 2 runs are not going to beat the Yankees on a regular basis. Like, how concerned are you about where the offense continues to be?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, I'm concerned about the lack of power, but like when I look at this game, the problem wasn't that the offense wasn't producing. It's simply that they weren't coming through with runners in scoring position, or at least runners on base, right? Like they had 9 hits and 4 walks in this game. I'll take that. Right now, the only extra base hit the Royals had in the entire series was Michael Massey's leadoff double today. But he scored the first run, and one of only 3 runs in the series that they scored. They were 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position. But the point is, they had 7 at bats, and if they get that many at bats with runners in scoring position, and they start hitting a little bit of pop, and Yankee Stadium should be good for that, right? Like, the whole problem with Baltimore was that it's so tough to hit for power if you're a right-handed hitter, and it absolutely burned the Orioles again today, right? We had the wild MJ Melendez impact play of the game today. He actually had 2, but completely redeeming himself after yesterday's defensive misadventure, making an absolutely impressive, I think 5% catch probability catch, traveling a tremendous distance on a ball where he really could not have. You would never dive for that ball because you're risking a literal head trauma. Like it was so close to the wall. Maybe in a game 3 you do that, but not in a game 2. Right? He had no choice but to stay on his feet. He just stuck out his glove and it was in the right place. But that obscures the fact that that's a home run in 27 out of 30 parks, including Kauffman Stadium, right? Like they got burned again. So Yankee Stadium, that is not going to be a problem. So the Royals absolutely have to hit for some more power. But the point is they got base runners. We said Zach Eflin was not Corbin Burns. He was beatable, hittable, and they hit him. I mean, they got to him. They had base runners on base all game. I mean, they left 12 men on base. And they, that doesn't count, Garrett Hampson being caught stealing. So I'm not too worried. They will have to obviously score more than 2 runs, like you said. I think they're capable of it. I think the big thing, of course, is seeing that Vinny does seem completely healthy. I mean, he had 2 hits today, a walk, he drove in the first run, and the threat of him forced them to pitch to Bobby Witt in the 6th inning. I saw a lot of people saying, how could they pitch to Bobby Witt again? Well, it's like if they walked Bobby Witt, you load the bases for Vinny Pasquantino. Mm-hmm. And where a walk drives in a run. And guess what? He did walk when he batted. So it's like, pick your poison now. And it's evidence of just how much he has transformed that lineup to have him back in there between Bobby and Salvi.
Which again, can we now confirm that had they not made the playoffs with him out, it's because he was out. It's not like it was an epic collapse. It's like we're seeing that it does matter. Like Bobby Witt gets pitches. Yeah, that's a little bit tongue in cheek because they've scored 3 whole runs in 2 games. So, I recognize the victory lap will be a short one here, but I think it does. You get my point. It does really matter. He makes a really big difference. I'm with you on that. And, I like that part. I want to go back to the MJ Melendez at bat. It was the worst at bat. I mean, I will say his first 2 strikes, it was a 3-pitch strikeout. The first 2 were strikes, but he wasn't even in the same zip code of putting the bat head on the ball on those first 2 swings. And the last one, I don't know what he was thinking. Can we also point out Salvador Perez looks like the most easy guy to get out. I mean, just throw a slider away. He cannot. He is Kit Kelly or Kit. What was her name? High fastballs. Can't lay off him, can't hit him. Like, well, slider away. Can't lay off it, can't hit it.
That's been him like in 2014. I mean, which is why it's so wild. He won the wild card game with a slider down, and it's the one time he made hard contact,
right?
And, it won the game. But yeah, no,
but he can't lay off now, right now. I'm not saying he can't get there. And I was talking. Curtis and I watched the game together, and we were talking about it. He's like, man, he can't help himself. I said, I think part of it's because he's getting up there in age, and he's such a smart player. You've heard guys talk about this. You got to trigger quicker. You got to guess a little.
You got to start the bat head a little bit faster.
You got to get it going, and so he's got to get it going, and he's just not recognizing that slider right now at all. And he's chasing some really. I mean, I wouldn't throw it within 12 inches of the plate.
But once you got 2 strikes on him, it seems to be like it's over, right? Like his hope is that he gets a pitch in the strike zone, and that's I feel like what he's trying to do, which is trying to put balls in play early so that he doesn't get to 2 strikes.
Right? Well, it is, old school football where you're running the ball for literally 9 yards a carry, and you're like, well, we got to throw it once, right? Like, and then you throw an incompletion, and you get behind the chains, and you have to. Literally, I would have to be 3-0 before I threw him anything but that. Like, I just don't think that he can hold off 3 times and with 7 pitches. If you throw 7 sliders outside, he can't hold his water 3 times. You will strike him out. And that's a little bit scary to me.
Yeah, it is. And yet, you know what? He still hits the ball hard. Like, in the 9th inning.
Only because people are dumb. That's what I'm saying. Never offer up that. I agree when they go ahead and throw one in the strike zone because they're like, well, he's going to take one. I gotta have a get me over fastball here to make sure I stay in front of the count. You don't. You can pitch from 3-0. No problem. I mean, worry about it at 3-0 when you got to come in.
I'm looking at it here. Actually, I didn't recall this myself. His final at bat, he had an exit velo of 106. He had a line drive to left field. It was actually off a slider, 84-mile-an-hour slider, but it was in the zone. And this is the thing. It's easy for us to say, just throw him a slider. He can't lay off it. But here's the thing. Even major league pitchers hang sliders sometimes. All right. And that is the danger. Yes. If you execute your slider, he's helpless. But if you hang one, he is still very, very capable of hitting it a long way. And the thing about postseason baseball that makes it so different than regular season baseball is that you're not seeing nearly as many pitchers who hang sliders as you do during the regular season. Like everyone's like, well, gee, why can't anybody hit in the postseason? Why are all the scores 2-1? It's because you're only seeing the top half of pitching staffs, right? It's not like the lineup turns over. You get to skip the 6, 7, 8, 9 hitters in your lineup and just have your first 5 hitters, bat over and over again. But with pitching staffs, yeah, you see the top 2 starters and then, the 4 best relievers, and that's all you see. The Royals didn't have to use anybody but that, and the Orioles too. So that's the danger with him, is that can he hit good pitching if they execute their pitches? You worry about that.
Well, and by the way, and James says, and I don't think I've seen Jane's name in the chat room, so welcome, James, if this is your first time checking out the stream. But he says, tons of MLB pitchers are not good enough to spot 7 pitches that well, though. Yes, but none of them pitch in the postseason, which is the point, Randy, you were just making. Right. That the riffraff is done. The 4 and 5s, maybe the 4 gets in once in a series when you get to the 7-game series, depending upon how they finished up beforehand. But the 5 never pitches, and the middle relievers don't get out there either. So it's best on best now. So that's the problem. That's why it is a little bit scary to see this. I mean, they need Salvador Perez. Now, if there's anybody I think can get red hot and play out of their gourd, Salvador Perez. That's my pick. And they also needed him. I think the threat of Salvador Perez power behind Vinny Pasquantino also is part of what gets Bobby Witt the pitches he gets. And we know Fermin has not been hitting down the stretch. I mean, I could see a scenario where they wanted Salvador Perez at first, and the Fermin that was batting, had an 810, 820 OPS back in May, June. If that guy's here, then he would have been behind the dish. Perez would have been at first base. It would have looked differently, but that wasn't an option.
Yeah, I mean, the question is Yuli Gurriel any better, right? Like the Royals are still one hitter short of really having a fearsome lineup, because it's that you've got a guy at first base who, hasn't hit a home run in the month that he's been in the major league. Like his slugging average is like under 300. Maybe for me, I don't know how for me would be worse, but yeah, I mean, this is the problem against elite pitching. The Royals' best opportunity is to hope that they get a rally started from the top 4 guys in their lineup. That's basically what they're doing, right? They got, lucky yesterday, but like Michael Garcia drew a walk in a key situation, was driven in by the top of the lineup, right? Today they score, right out the gate, they ambush and get the double, and then Kyle Isbell gets an infield single, and then Massey and Bobby Witt bring him around, right? Without the top of the lineup, like the 5 through 9 hitters on this team are just not capable of sustaining rallies at this point, right? Anything you get from the bottom half of the lineup is going to be a bonus.
Yeah. What do you think? How are you lining up the starting pitching?
So for the upcoming series, here's the thing. This weird schedule is such that whoever starts game 1 can start game 4 on full rest. Whoever starts game 2 can start game 5 on full rest. The problem is the Royals cannot start Lugo or Ragans in game 1 on full rest.
No.
Now there is, I don't think they're going to do it. I just want to throw this out there. Cole Ragans threw only 80 pitches yesterday. Could he start on 3 days rest on Saturday? Because if he does, then you have.
I think that the numbers, he does better with the extra rest.
Right. I don't think they're going to do it. And I originally, weeks ago, I was thinking, oh, this would be a great idea. Ragans and Lugo, you could start them 4 out of the 5 games. But the emergence of the bullpen here means that, like I said, it almost doesn't matter, because you don't have to use your starter. Like if you start, they're going to have to probably start Michael Wacha in game 1. And Michael Wacha,
I think there's another option I want to run by you.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, but whoever you start, you can go through the lineup once. The 4th inning, there's absolutely no reason you don't go to your bullpen in the 4th inning, because everybody you use is getting a day off the next day. So I'm not as concerned about it as I was before. But let's hear your idea.
Well, first of all, bbq.gov says don't risk Ragans early with the calf cramping. I agree. I think that's why it's complete. He left the game earlier than you wanted to. That's why he's off the board. And he does pitch better. He's one of those guys that pitches better with extra rest. So fine, great. You got to win 3. So there's no reason for him not to start game 2. The question is,
right, and he'll have 5 days.
Game 1 and game 5. Those are the things you're talking about. Yeah, can you get him in there?
Well, the nice thing is he can start games 2 and 5, which are both at Yankee Stadium, and I actually like that. I want Ragans is the guy I want in New York. So I start him in game 2. You get 5 days rest. You'll have an extra day, especially with the cramping.
And then game 5, how many days rest would he have?
4. You have 4. You have a full 4 days rest.
2 and 5. So to me, it is going to be, I don't think there's any doubt, Wacha, Ragans, Lugo.
And Lugo and 3, yeah.
Right? Does that get, where does it put, would Wacha come up again?
So Wacha could come up and would start game 4 on full rest. So again, you only have to use those 3 guys.
So you only have to use those 3 guys, which to me puts Brady Singer in question as to whether or not he makes the playoff roster. Because I don't know that you want him throwing in Yankee Stadium. But
you're going to have 2 games in Kansas City, there's that. And you want a guy who can go long, you always want a long innings option in case you have an 11, 12, 13 inning game or whatever.
Well, and I think that's where Lynch has given you some options there as well. But I agree. I think he probably will, but I think there'll be a discussion about it. But I think the other option, and I think it'll be discussed, and then I think it'll be thrown away, but I'll bring it up here, would be a bullpen day. Right? Now, I don't think you want to do it because I don't think you want to, like, if something goes wrong, and you got to run through a bunch of them, even with the extra off days, then you kind of get behind the 8 ball. So I think they'll land on, you could theoretically go with, we'll see what they do with the pitching. It's a longer series now. So do they go with an extra pitcher? but you could do like a Marsh for 2. You could do something else, and Daniel Lynch, and hope you get 3.5 out of him, something along those lines. 3 1/3, 3 2/3. You could do that, but I think they'll just say, listen, Michael Wacha's been great down the stretch. We're going with Michael Wacha. It sets everything else up. We get 2 Wachas, 2 Reagans, and a Lugo. That's a good recipe for us.
Well, I mean, frankly, I think why not both? Why not do Wacha and a bullpen game? And I think that's it's going to be. I think Wacha is going to start, but I think they're going to go in with the idea that he's he's no chance he's going to see a third batter in the game, and there's a chance he won't see a second batter in the game. Like, he might go through the lineup one time. They 3 innings, right? 2 to 3 innings, and then you start your parade of relievers. And part of that also is you get the right-hander in to start the game. And then, the Yankees, presumably, especially if it's Wacha, they're going to assume that he's not an opener. So they're going to start a standard lineup against a right-hander with a lot of left-handed bats. And he goes through the lineup one time, but by the time Juan Soto comes up for a second time, the 11th batter of the game, a lefty, it's matchup time, right? Do you go to the lefty there? Now, of course, Aaron Judge is right-handed and bats right behind him, but the point is, like, you can start playing matchup ball at that point. So I think it's going to be I think we're both going to be right. I think it's going to be Wacha, and I think he's going to be pulled early, and I think they're just going to start relievers. And then, I mean, even with Reagans and Lugo, you have the luxury of, if the guy's struggling for whatever reason, if he's, at the first sign of, stress, you can pull him, right? I mean, again, day off the next day. Game 3 won't, but that's the only game in which you have even to worry about that a little bit. And I think the team that wins this series, a big factor is going to be which manager is embracing like a playoff schedule that, even by modern playoff standards, it's very strange. 5 games in 8 days is just weird. It's only in the American League. The National League has 1 fewer off day, I believe. I don't think they have an off day between 1 and 2. So I think the team that adapts to this and embraces it fully with their bullpen, and the Royals now have a bullpen that is capable of taking advantage of this craziness. The danger you have is that you say, well, we have better starting pitchers. We have Reagans and Lugo. And so, you rely on your edge in the starting pitching department and don't take advantage of it. And that's why today what we saw, even though he waited 2 batters too long, we both agree with Lugo, he didn't wait any longer than necessary. It was the 5th inning, he's out. 10 years ago, that was unthinkable. Like the idea of Ned Yost pulling James Shields, because that's who Seth Lugo is. He's James Shields in the 5th inning. It was amazing he did it in the 6th inning in the wild card game, but in the 5th inning, I don't think you would have had a guy up warming up, 1 batter in to the 5th inning. So I'm confident they will use the bullpen very aggressively in this upcoming series.
Blake got on me a little bit. He said, you don't like Singer out of the bullpen. I think his stuff could play up. He could be filthy. I do think his stuff could play up, but I also know that he's really struggled against the good teams this year. I mean, he's been a bully. He's beat up on the bad teams, and that's what scares me. Do I think he'll be on the roster? Yes. Will it be discussed? I think it'll be discussed, and then I think it'll be discarded. And I think that's the way they'll view him. But, really, he gets to be a bigger – he's got a chance of making a bigger impact if they get to 7-game series.
Right.
That's where I think it'll be.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So how do the Royals beat the Yankees? What does it look like?
So there's one other thing I want to cover about how they beat the Orioles that I think will play into that as well. It's really interesting because people have been looking for the secret sauce of how do you win in the postseason for years, decades. And back when the Royals were barely squeaked in 2014, and then were like undefeated, everyone's like, what's special about this team? Well, they don't strike out much, right? And the one statistical correlation that seems to still hold up at least a little bit is that teams that make contact, right? The lower your strikeout rate in the regular season, the more likely you are to win in the postseason. It's not a perfect correlation by any means, but generally speaking, when you're in the contact teams, the Giants were an elite contact team too. And you think about like how they beat the Royals, even in Game 7, it was like making contact at the right times. Sometimes it was, just a ball that advanced a runner, not necessarily, getting on base. Well, the Royals had the fewest strikeouts in the American League this year, right? The Orioles were dead average. They were 8th in the league. They struck out I want to say 200 times more than the Royals did. And what did the series come down to? The Orioles had 3 at bat. Like for all the base runners the Royals left on in this game, the one time they had a runner on third base with less than 2 out. One time in the whole series, they came through. Vinny in the first inning today, right? The broadcasters were waxing about, how selfless Bobby Witt was to move the runner over. Like this is 1971. It's not, because when you get a runner on third base with 1 out, you got to worry that the pitcher is going to go for the strikeout. But it worked beautifully because Vinny made hard contact, pulled it past the drawn in infield, and scored a run. The Orioles, though, had 3 at bats in the series with a runner on third base and nobody out, or less than 2 out. James McCann struck out yesterday. Anthony Santander popped up today with the bases loaded and nobody out. And then I think it was Colton Cowser who struck out on a pitch that had so much movement it hit him. But don't swing at that pitch. The point is, they had 3 chances. They were 0 for 3. The Royals were 1 for 1. That was the series. So making contact is so important, and that's one area the Royals still have their advantage.
Well, I mean, it's because it's old school baseball now, right? Like it's not that hard to figure out. There are more good players today than there were, when Babe Ruth was playing, and we had, I don't know, what do we have, 12 teams, 14 teams, or whatever it was. And there are enough players to field more than that. But as it's expanded, the quantity of high quality players is not there. And so the game, there's an emphasis on hitting home runs, taking pitches, walking, all of that kind of stuff. But also, the playoffs just show it. Like when you cut out the middle guys and the other guys can ramp up because there's no tomorrow and they're not pacing themselves, it becomes more like old school baseball. I mean, there were 2 home runs hit the opening day, right? Of the wild card. 8 teams played 4 games, 2 home runs were hit. And then both came in one game, the Padres game. Right? I don't know what it's been today. There was one in the Royals game. I'd have to go back and look. I haven't really done much with the other box scores, but the bottom line is it's just a different game here. So yes, you're right. But the question is, as a business, it's better to get to the postseason more regularly than not make it as often, but be able to do damage when you get there. Right? This is a team that, did some of the things that are more Moneyballish, the formula for regular season. But the bullpen, especially coming into form, is a playoff attribute, much more so than maybe the regular season. It helps, right? It certainly helps. There's no doubt. But then the other thing is making contact, and they do it. And that was their key in 14 and 15 as well.
Yeah, I want to finish here with like one final amazing stat. Like everyone knows, well, maybe not everybody, but you and I and most people here know the Chiefs are 15 and 3 in the playoffs in the Patrick Mahomes era, right? Like you talk about being blessed. 15 and 3 it's absurd. Do you realize going back to Game 5 of the 1985 World Series? Okay, so the Royals were down 3-1 to the Cardinals in the 1985 World Series. They won 3 in a row. They go 29 years without making the playoffs, but then they win 8 in a row to get to the World Series. They lose in 7. The following year, they win it all, and now they've won two games, right? They have won 9 of their last 10 playoff series. Think about how wild that is. But here's the stat I want to leave you with. The Royals, going back to Game 5 of the 1985 World Series, are 27 and 9 in the postseason. 27 and 9. Since 1985, since this started, the Royals have never gone 27 and 9 at any point in the regular season in any 36-game stretch. Do you realize how blessed we are living right now? How, this is, I can't believe this is our life. As Kansas City sports fans, up to and including September 29th, 2014, the day before the wild card game, we thought it was our lot in life to just be cursed, to root for a horrible baseball team and a cursed football team that kept making it to the playoffs and then getting boned in the worst possible ways. And here we are. The Royals are 27 and 9 in their last 36 playoff games, won 9 of 10 playoff series. The Chiefs are 15 and 3 and won 3 Super Bowls. You can't get any better than this. We just let it roll as long as it can. Enjoy it while we can. we're getting the Yankees now. As much as, as exciting as it is to get to the ALDS, like beating the Yankees at that point, everything is gravy after that. Like, I want the head of the Yankees, and I've run out of things to say about how much fun it is to be a Kansas City sports fan right now. Like this, we as bad as it was with Kaufman Quarter the first 2 years, at least we had the Chiefs on the side to keep us,
right,
entertained. And here we are, came into the season with no expectations, 106 losses, and here we are talking about playing the Yankees after already winning a playoff round in October.
Yeah,
like, this is as good as it gets, Soren.
Yeah, it is as good as it gets. All right, so what's your expectation? What do you think happens in the series?
I think, like I said with the Orioles, I mean, I think they match up pretty well because that bullpen has come together at such a good time. And the Yankees, their pitching staff is deep, but it's not particularly top heavy. Really, a lot of it depends on, are we getting the ace version of Garrett Cole or not? Right. Because if not, I mean, they've got some guys who've, had good years. Carlos Rodon's had a good year, but he's not a guy that scares me that you talk about, going to give you 6 innings and allow, 1 run. I think that they can win the series. I'm going to say Royals in 5. Part of it because I think Cole Reagans could be the Yankee killer that we've been looking, every team's been looking for, right? But I see Cole Reagans being the kind of guy who can go into Yankee Stadium and win and shut them down and quiet that crowd. And I'm going to say the Royals win in 5 with Cole Reagans spinning a gem in Game 5 and Lucas Ursig closing it out again.
Okay, I like it. It looks a lot. I don't want to be just a homer, right? But with the bullpen pitching the way it is, it looks a lot better than it did.
And Vinny looking healthy, right? Being back and hitting.
The things are MJ Melendez is frightening. Michael Garcia's inability to get down a bunt. Salvi chasing. There are some signs. It still doesn't look quite as good as it started looking in 15 or even in 14 where they started, putting things together. But yeah, I mean, they went toe-to-toe with the Yanks, even though they lost the series. They were toe-to-toe with them in those games, right? Like, so I think it's going to be a fight. The rest versus rust. I think the Yankees starting pitching is getting a little too much grief. Its overall numbers are not as bad as people think. And if the rest is the recipe for what they needed, then it could be a little tougher than people think.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing that's going to determine the series is essentially the Yankees are one of the most top heavy lineups you've ever, right? Because it has one of the all-time great 2-man combos in Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, literal historic, right? Aaron Judge may have had the best season by a right-handed hitter in modern Major League history, and Juan Soto was absolutely elite. The third best hitter on this team is Giancarlo Stanton, who can hit for pop, but at a 298 on base percentage, right? And nobody else had an OPS above 720. It's basically the Royals maybe are just the Bobby Witt show and 8 guys who aren't that good. The Yankees are Judge and Soto, and that's a problem because there's 2 of them. But the other 7 guys are beatable. So if you find a way to work around those guys, right?
Stanton's beatable, but if you make a mistake, he will make you pay. And if the other 2 guys are on base in front of him, that is a lethal combination.
That's the danger, because if you pitch around, there's only so many times you can pitch around a guy, right? You can pitch around Bobby with 1 guy if you want. It's hard to pitch around 2 of them and then take a chance every time Giancarlo Stanton comes up. There's 2 men on base. But the point is, if they find a way to neutralize them. I remember 2014 they played the Angels, and it's they got the best player in the world, Mike Trout. Well, the Royals had figured out that Mike Trout had one hole in his game, which was that his swing did not catch up to high fastballs, and they just buried him with high fastballs in that series. He got him once. He homered. He was 0 for 12, I think, or 0 for 11 in his other at-bats, and they won, and Mike Trout's never been back to the playoffs, and he fixed that hole the following year and got even better. But the point is, this may come down to advanced scouting. How do we get Aaron Judge out? How do we neutralize Juan Soto, at least? And if they figure that out, right, the thing about Bobby Witt is that you can neutralize his power. If he just hits a ground ball, you're doomed. He won today on an infield single, right? And that's what makes him so dangerous. It's so hard to shut him down because he doesn't strike out a lot. Like we saw the difference here in the series between him and Gunnar Henderson. Gunnar Henderson, if he hits the ball, he hits it a long way, but he doesn't hit the ball a lot. Right? He strikes out a lot, and he struck out to end the series. Bobby Witt makes contact most of the time, and even with 2 strikes. Aaron Judge, yeah, he hit 58 home runs. He also struck out 171 times. So it's really going to come down to, can they control Judge and sort of limit the damage with them? If they can, I think they can win the series.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's going to do it for us. The good doctor, Dr. Rany Jazayerli, Soren, Petro with you. We'll be back up next on a Sunday, right? Because we've got weddings and functions and different things that are going on. So we will get the game in Saturday. Nothing Saturday night, but Sunday we will be back at it at our normal time, and we'll recap game 1 of the Royals and Yankees, preview game 2 of the Royals and Yankees at that time. Remember, we're always brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's best for 30 years. One contractor, all things parking lot. Call them at 816-484-3338. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. For Rany Jazayerli, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on Kaufman Corner.